Bantamweight. It's a division that rarely ever puts on fights, some of them good, and in this matchup coming up this weekend, we have Karol Rosa, a ranked fighter, looking to fight another ranked fighter for 2 fights in a row that's over 40 years old, and Lina Lansberg. And for Karol Rosa, Matt, we've been high on Karol Rosa for a very long time, and that hype is just gone. It's dissipated. It was like when steam engines went to electric trains. It's bye-bye for the most part.
Became obsolete.
You look at Karol Rosa in her last fight. She was taking on Sara McMann, and of course, the conversation is around the former Olympic silver medalist in freestyle wrestling, McMann, and what can she do? She had spent some time away. Is she going to be able to look like her former self? Because for Sara McMann, she did, after all, fight for a title. Didn't go well against Ronda Rousey.
The Athens Olympics were a while ago, guys. Like, I remember the Beijing Olympics growing up. I was 10 years old when they happened. I have no recollection of the Athens Olympics whatsoever, and I was born in 1998.
Yeah, nor should you. You would have been 6. But
that's
when
my
you
whole
do
point, though.
Consider this fight between Rosa and Lansberg, for Rosa, her last time out, it was uninspiring, was the performance. She got taken down over and over again. When she had her opportunities on the feet, it wasn't terrible. But for her in that fight against Sara McMann, I mean, it was bad. 4 of 6 takedowns for McMann in that one. 10 minutes and 27 seconds of control time. And I got to say this. For Karol Rosa, if you look at her time inside of the UFC's octagon, she takes on Lara Procopio. She defends all of the takedowns. She takes on Vanessa Melo, defends the takedowns. So it was 5 from Procopio, now Fritzen, if you look for her out there on the internet. It was 2 for Melo. It was 1 of 3 was what Edwards was able to muster in that fight, and she was only able to get 2 seconds of control time, so Rosa popped back up. And then in the fight against Rowdy Betch Correia in the retirement see-you-later fight, Karol Rosa defended 2 takedowns. I say all of this to say the takedown defense for Rosa in the UFC has been very good. And then she fought Sara McMann, and it was very bad. And for Lina Lansberg, she likes to mix it up. Is she takedown heavy? Not necessarily. She likes to get into the clinch, throw a lot of elbows. She is, of course, the elbow queen. But for Rosa, we saw a giant portion of her game exposed, and it was a portion that on the regional scene we had seen exposed as well. It just hadn't reared its ugly head in the UFC.
And it makes me really curious to see if someone like Lina Lansberg, who, like you had mentioned, she'll use the takedown, but it's not really at the forefront of her game. She really is one of those fighters who, if you're a very technical striker, that's when she's going to look for the clinch, look for her own takedown. And if you're a really strong grappler, well, she'll kind of use this the opposite. Think of like a prime Ally Quinta. I know we have to go quite a ways back for that, but when you think about Ally Quinta, what's he really good at? Boxing and wrestling. If you're a top tier striker, he's going to use his wrestling to take you down. And if you're a great grappler, think about the Kevin Lee fights, he's going to use his wrestling primarily to keep the fight standing. And Lansberg does have some similarities to his game, but she really does. Well, to Ally Quinta's game, to his game. But for Lina, she does get a lot of her own offense done in the clinch. And I would say she has a lot less skills in the open cage with her own striking. And that's going to be a really interesting range story for both these women, because I do think Lina Lansberg can strike with Karol Rosa for a little bit in this fight. Don't get me wrong. It's not like Lina Lansberg is a complete zero on the feet and she can't get her own work done. I do think Lansberg is going to have to at least attempt a lot of takedowns in this fight, though, just to make Karol Rosa think. Because after her last performance, you know Rosa's probably assuming, okay, I just got taken down a lot. If my opponent did watch that fight, and you would hope that they did, or at least their coach did, they're probably going to go in with a very similar game plan. And if Rosa can defend some of those takedowns, I still think she is more technical on the feet than Lina Lansberg.
Which is a little bit of a hot take, just a little bit, based on the fact that for Lina Lansberg, she is a former, IAMF Muay Thai champion, 2008 and 2012 IFMA.
And you're right.
And she had fought both the Shevchenkos in just pure Muay Thai.
But the thing about Lansberg is, a lot of the strikes that she does like, or the exchanges that she likes, she's also getting hit in some of those, and it's some of those give one to also receive one, give one to take one type of exchanges, whereas Rosa, I feel like she's a little bit cleaner with her technique on the outside. I think she can hit a few shots, get out of the range, and then reset. The only problem is, if Lina Lansberg has the type of game plan where she's kind of like zombieing forward, and we have seen this
just
in
like
the past.
The last fight.
Exactly. It can look really good, but the thing about Lansberg too is, and I doubt it's going to change that if she's 40 years old, the output would be a lot nicer if it was about 15 to 20% higher. The strikes look good when they're on the feet, but she can get outworked by a superior striker. She can also get out grappled by a superior grappler. So I think this fight's going to be really interesting for just what range it takes place at, because I really do think both athletes have their own little niches where they can have a lot of success.
And if you do look at it, just to go back and nitpick a little bit with Karol Rosa, pre-UFC, a lot of very, very good experience. She had fights against Larissa Pacheco. She fought Melissa Gatto where she did get submitted, and that was kind of the thing. Got a little checked on the skill set on the mat. She is, of course, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, is Karol Rosa, but also fought Mariana Moraes and Gisele Moreira twice before making it into the UFC. But if you do focus on just Karol Rosa and the insane numbers that she puts out in terms of output in her fights, 6.65 strikes per minute landed to 4.45 received, that is a pretty tidy strike differential. And if you want the numbers, she had a knockdown and 171 significant strikes against Laura Fritzen. She had 120 strikes and 2 takedowns against Vanessa Melo. 125 to 62 were the strikes against Betcha Correia, and 30-27, 30-27, 30-26 before she ends up losing to Sarah McMahon. But I love the output of Karol Rosa. She tends to keep her head in a decent spot, chin kind of checked in, at least close to her chest when she flows behind her jab. Throws very good output, whereas for Lina Lansberg, as accredited as she is in Muay Thai, and all of the fights she had against Pani Kanzad, one in 2012 in MMA, one again earlier
rivals
this year against Kanzad. The best part of her last fight against Kanzad, after a long layoff, she had a kid. I guess the combination of her and Akira Korisani, it goes from not just the gym, but they have a kid together out of Redline TC. You see Korisani, you also see Nicholas Dalby out of that gym as well. But for Lansberg, second round against Kanzad, they're in one of those zombie-like give one to take one exchanges, and then instead of throwing a punch, Lansberg lands a nasty elbow, and it drops Kanzad. And those are where she's at her best. I don't know if she'll have those exchanges with Karol Rosa, but it remains to be said that the skill set of Lansberg has translated somewhat well from where she debuted against Chris fucking Cyborg to fighting Pani Kanzad for the 15th time earlier this year.
And I know this is difficult to say because she's 2-3 in her last 5 and she is 40 years old, but her skill set does age well. She's not someone who lost her athleticism and then immediately she doesn't have anything to show in her game. It is a lot of that pushing forward. It's more dedication than just pure athleticism, which is how Lina Lansberg wins her fight. So I think she's going to be able to make this fight very interesting, but I really do think the hand speed of Karol Rosa is going to be enough of an X factor for her to be able to be into a lot of those ugly exchanges with Lina Lansberg, but I just think Karol Rosa is going to be able to win out on a lot of those exchanges.
If you have a look at the odds in the matchup, Matt, Karol Rosa open a minus 275. She's minus 257 right now. For Lansberg, open plus 235, plus 202. We have a look at the Tapology votes. Surprise to us as they are to you. I'm going to say over-under if Karol Rosa is almost between a minus 250, minus 300 favorite. I'll say over-under 75% Rosa.
I was going to say over 70, so I'll say under just slightly.
You're going to say under just slightly?
Wow.
Way over.
I'm really surprised, honestly.
977 total votes, 92% Rosa, 88% by decision. For the 8% that have Lansberg, 73% by decision. For me, it's the fact that Rosa can mix it up a little bit more. She's not as reliant on just single power shots like Lansberg is, and I love the volume out of Rosa. The fight against McMahon, it zapped the takedown defense, which had kind of held up, and not just kind of, it had held up for Rosa in her UFC tenure. But for me, I like Rosa in this matchup over Lansberg. We'll see if Lansberg can make it scrappy like she did against Macy Chasson. That was a pretty impressive win.
And I think this can be a very similar fight to that Chasson fight as well. I do see Lina Lansberg being able to make this very competitive, but I still feel like Karol Rosa is the more skilled athlete. Now, with all that being said, it's one thing to give up takedowns to Sarah McMahon, and I do think Lina Lansberg is going to go for takedowns throughout this fight, but I do think Karol Rosa's takedown defense is going to be enough to at least stifle Lansberg. Now, that is a question we're going to have to keep on asking about Karol Rosa for basically every other fight she's going to have against these top-ranked women. So hopefully for Rosa, this is a bit of a realignment period. She can go in there, look good against Lansberg, and then get her back on that road that we had all kind of expected her to be on. Because right now, there's the likes of Holly Holm, Irene Aldana, Catlyn Vieira. Like, there's a lot of good fighters in this division near the top of it, and a lot of those fighters do need a dance partner, so I could realistically see the winner of this getting a big-name opponent their next time out.
Karol Rosa is who we're both going with in the matchup. I struggle with words sometimes. 92% of the fans on Tapology going with her to get the win. Let us know in the comments section who you have in the matchup. Big-time title fights up at the top. Bantamweight and lightweight strap on the line. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say. Let's get into it.